Peter, it's great to have all your maquettes here in the gallery. I've always really loved how the maquettes show your ideas in this sort of crystallized, direct form. It's like looking through your sketchbooks. They're so close to the thinking, and the other thing that is so apparent in them is the making process, and it's that sort of closeness, the deftness between what you do with your hands and how your brain is telling it to do it.
Well, it's a lovely, lovely opportunity you've given me, Rungwe, to do this, because it's very unusual. I've never done it before, actually, a retrospective of, dare I say, kind of over 45 years of making small things. And it's been a lovely process for me. It's been a kind of a opportunity to review all these small things which have been packed away in boxes in my store for years, many of them. You know, there are some, I've discovered some threads, some paths not taken, as it were, which has been really refreshing, and it's actually sort of rekindled certain avenues of exploration that I'm going to pursue. So I'm very grateful for that, and it's completely different process to setting up an ordinary show, because normally I'm placing up to half a dozen really quite large objects and a few large drawings or something. But here we've got thousands of things, so an awful lot of decision making. But it's a wonderful opportunity, and I think to also juxtapose the little thought experiments in 3 dimensions with the prints has been a really nice thing to do.
Yeah, because the prints I find are almost like a shorthand for the ideas. Yeah. Which you can do quickly and easily, I guess, compared to actually dealing with material and gravity and all those things.
Absolutely, and it is, I mean, I think probably predominantly my printmaking chosen, my favourite printmaking method is probably lino cut. And of course, relief printing like that, lino cutting, it is something in between drawing and carving in a way. You've got the resistance of the material, you've got the actual physicality of it, so it's not... I love the kind of way in which the liner has a resistance to the tool, and I usually sort of put it on my wood-burning stove and warm it up a little bit, and there's nothing more pleasurable than making lines in that way.
Well, they really keep that directness. It is. I mean, quite a lot of the stones actually you could make prints off the stones, couldn't you? So your process is very related to the printmaking process. Absolutely. It's just you're using it in the 3 dimensions.
Yes, and actually some of the newer little carvings, the very low relief ones, they really are akin to printmaking, because they are very shallow relief. But I've always thought, actually, in a way, the more shallow the relief, as you see in things like Egyptian reliefs and you see in Assyrian reliefs, I mean, actually the depth is millimetres. And in the right light, they just come to life in the most wonderful way. So I think I'm becoming more and more keen on the idea of very shallow relief on these things. I mean, I like the idea also of actually printing from a stone, and I have, I've made some initial experiments, a bit like those kind of seals that you get in. Well, I suppose it's kind of Mesopotamia in places, with little cylinders. Yeah, exactly. And then rolling those, printing from that, into wax or into clay or something. But no, I mean, it's such a lovely opportunity to just sort of have at this time of life for me, to just have a kind of overview of,
most of your big
what the heck I've been up to for the past
I mean,
decades.
Another thing that I'm really loving about this show is it sort of, partly because of the small scale of most of the pieces, but also because several of them have got a big iteration, haven't they, in some huge granite boulder or rock piece, or even bronze, where we've collaborated together. But to have that intimacy of being so close to your thought process and then how you wrestle that out, often in different materials. Yeah. And I think also the materials are important, because they resonate their own messages on top of what you're saying, don't they? And I think it might come as a surprise, how diverse how diverse the materials you use to express your language are. You know, people think of you as a stone man. They don't realize that you're equally adept at casting, at clay work, at the printmaking. So I think and hope that it will sort of make people realize that actually your process is actually much more diverse and wider than the huge, I mean, impressive as they most certainly are. But this gives a different quality. Yes. It brings that intimate, the little, you can really scrutinize these things close up and get a great emotional charge from them.
Yeah, no, I really get that. I think, there is a tendency in life generally for people to sort of like to keep you in your pigeonhole, as it were, and of course, I am definitely best known for my work in stone. But as you say, I mean, there's an awful lot of stuff I've done with other materials, and I do love the way in which, what I try to do with any material really is to work with the material and to actually bring out the qualities which are, well, the combination of sort of what's in my imagination, what's in my head, what I want to express, with the potential of the particular material. And with a lot of these works in clay and in wax, these sorts of things, it is very much to do with that sort of freshness for me, that they often, I make the individual things quite rapidly, make a lot of them and then edit the ones I don't like out. But that freshness, most of the clay work is not using a sort of modelling tool. No. It's actually using my hands, often using them in a symmetrical way, like the Playing God piece at the end where I've just done that. The sort of most basic kind of modelling you can imagine. And likewise with the clay bodies, which were thrown by a potter as cylinders, and then I've systematically sort of collapsed them with symmetrical gestures. So it's quite gestural, as Absolutely. Are these quite gestural.
Yeah, I mean, that sense of manipulating material is so evident.
And I think the fresh, just trying to keep that freshness as time goes on, that becomes more and more important to me. And also, of course, the expressive vocabulary with a thing like this, they're all obviously variations on a theme. But by having lots of them together, you build up a kind of expressive vocabulary by the way in which you compare one with another, and they take on different expressions in relation to their siblings, if you like. And that's really important to me.
Yeah.
And also, of course, the kind of symmetry, not perfect symmetry, but we are so attuned to bilateral symmetry. I think for the very simple reason that we are, more or less bilaterally symmetrical. And I think right from early childhood, we're so attuned to reading bilateral symmetry in terms of meaning and expression, simply because the human body, and the human face, that immediately that symmetry is perceived. It makes a sort of beeline to the bit of our brain that deals with meaning.
It's interesting because obviously you use nature as a sort of semi-collaborator in a lot of your works, where the boulder is pre-shaped and then you interact with that.
Absolutely, and that's very important to me. I think because a study of natural phenomena has been what's driven my work right from the beginning, and I suppose starting with a kind of almost like a semi-scientific sort of research approach, and then allowing that to move into a kind of reverie for the beauty and the kind of complexity of the natural world. But I think having been interested in those natural phenomena all my life, I've realised over the years that everything we see around us in the natural world is in kind of dynamic tension between a tendency for spontaneous pattern formation, which we see everywhere. If you look into water or the sky or sand dunes or animal patterns, but that is always balanced by an equally strong tendency for random variation. Yeah. And of course, that's what drives the whole of the living world. Yeah. if it was only replication, there'd be stasis. Nothing would develop, nothing would evolve. And if there were only random variation, well, it's almost impossible to imagine what that is.
Yes.
But there's an interesting way, I mean, this idea of theme and variation is very important in all my work. And I think, it's very easy to see, it's obviously a musical term primarily, and it's easy to see how you can't have variation without theme. But actually, in an interesting way, I think in a way you can't really have theme without variation, because the extraordinary thing that we do as human beings is we extrapolate from many, many different examples of slightly imperfect examples of something to what the, if you like, the Platonic model would be. And so things like, and that's, we're capable of imagining geometric things which don't exist in the real world.
They can imagine the perfection.
They can imagine the perfection. Of course, Plato understood that in a slightly different way. And I think it's a very important concept for me. So in this sense, you're talking about the boulders and then often imposing sort of geometric patterns, or just an idea like taking a line for a walk around a boulder. Of course, there's an infinite number of ways you can traverse a three-dimensional form with a line. But I think that thing of that tension between the given of the stone, nothing to do with human hand at all, it's a result of innumerable chance events in a sort of geological timescale. So it's just a thing. Sure. It's not a blank sheet of paper, it's already got its own characteristics. And then actually reconciling that with whatever simple set of rules that I've decided to impose on myself in dealing with it. That balance is what I'm interested in. And also the other important thing for me is that kind of way of working induces an unself-conscious exploration where one's led by a kind of very, very rapid dialogue between decision-making and acting on that decision. And it's almost like the working process becomes very, very fluid, even when it's working with something hard like stone.
Well, it's always struck me that you give yourself quite tight limitations to what it is you're going to do. So you start with a preformed shape onto which you impose what it is that you want to do. And I think that's somehow the clarity of your language, because you work within these quite tight parameters, whichever ones you choose to do.
Well, it's nice you say that. I mean, for me, play is incredibly important. But in order to play effectively and in a way that's interesting both for myself and hopefully for an audience, you actually do need to have a playground. You do need to have rules. I mean, football without a finite pitch and a set of rules wouldn't be interesting to play or watch.
Yeah, quite.
And you do need to delineate the parameters of your play. And ironically and counterintuitively, giving oneself limitations and at the same time a degree of freedom is actually incredibly liberating rather than constraining.
Quite, particularly if you've got a language that is expressive.
Yeah.
I think another thing is that a lot of people might not understand how intense your research is into some of the themes that you're exploring, not just themes of science and life and nature, but also the dawn of art and how pre-made art forms are also part of what you're thinking about. I mean, it's interesting. Probably the earliest piece that we're showing is a piece that takes, I suppose, a lot of imagery from the very first so-called Venus sculptures, and you see that pop up again. I mean, even these have an element of that, don't they? Yeah. And other art. You're not just randomly making patterns on boulders. There's an awful lot of work that you put yourself through before you even tackle.
No, that's right. That's right. And I think, yes, I mean, that business of being interested in very early art, I mean, without a doubt, the biggest influence on my work is, Anon, really. So all those very early things, because I think it does speak to us about the human condition in a very fundamental way at the very dawn of kind of consciousness, in a sense. And I think it also does use, I suspect that cave paintings, for example, things suggest themselves to you. You kind of read, one reads things into the world as much as one reads things out of the world,
Sure.
And so we're reading things out of the world all the time and labeling and naming things and putting them in categories. But also, the world enters our consciousness as emotion as well as knowledge.
Absolutely.
And as a sculptor, as an artist, I'm really interested in that exploration of how the world affects us in terms of its emotional impact.
I think one of the things that both of us have, made very important in our experiences was the project we did together on Lolui Island.
Absolutely.
And using prehistory in a very direct way, almost like a collaborator, to take prehistoric rock gongs and have musicians make music, and there were they weren't they were Neolithic paintings on the rock gongs and around the rock gongs, and there was something very both liberating and a huge responsibility. I felt that what we did there was serious, and I felt that what you made there was a worthy successor to the art that we found there, and these incredible musical instruments.
It was an amazing, it's a trip of my lifetime in a way. It's an incredible trip. And amazingly inspiring. I think the combination also working with the musicians, both the classical musicians from the London Sinfonietta and the traditional Ugandan musicians. And again, all those ideas of theme and variation, of structure and freedom, and just, those extraordinary natural rock formations.
Fantastic.
Unbelievable.
It's nice to have your prints on
absolutely,
them.
yes, but it was, something to really conjure with. But
and I love the fact that you left the main piece that you made. You left it on the island. It's part of it. And
I wouldn't have liked to have put it in one of those canoes.
No, nor would I. But it's amazing because since we were there, there's been a scientific mission to the island to record the rock art, and of course they found everything that we'd been doing there, and I had to sort out what was ancient and what was recent, because it was using the same language and material.
I think I think people responded there, obviously from a very different culture in a way, although I think they did sort of, to some extent, get what I was doing there, which
Absolutely.
was very nice and appreciated.
I think it was fantastic to see not just the kids of the island, who were absolutely entranced by everything that was going on, both musically and sculpturally, but also, lots of people came up to us with really very profound interpretations of what you were doing. And it was such a brilliant illustration that, art is a universal language.
Absolutely.
And particularly your handmade, very much interacting with the material that was there. They felt that they could relate to it and they could own it in a sense, in that sense of being able to respond to it.
Yeah, I mean, I
It
think
wasn't alien.
No, I agree, and I think it's worth remembering, that actually an awful lot of how we relate to things that other people from different cultures have made is just by virtue of the fact that we are human beings and so are they. And, even if it was 10,000 or 20,000 years ago, I don't think they were that different from us. And I can see why.
At all?
No, not really at all. I mean, but I do see why there's been a very strong reaction in the sort of curatorial museum community, quite rightly over the past decades, that actually, you can't just present stuff without any context. And of course, the context enriches one's understanding of the work, the ritual that the mask was used for, the god that the figurine represents or whatever. But as a sculptor, you know, it is important to remember that, you know, we all share so much in common as human beings. And I think in the very sort of good and well kind of intentioned way to put things into a social context, if you like, we have tended to lose the fact that actually on some level we can relate to these things. It's not cultural appropriation. We are part of the same species, and we, you know, there's nothing wrong with having a visceral appreciation of artwork, even when you don't have the full context.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we don't have the full context for the prehistoric art, and yet we relate to it in a very profound way. And I think the fact that the project we did on Lolloway was also music related, and that music and image and music and form could have a dialogue, and that was something that everybody who was involved in that project got and enlarged upon, exploited, and shared. And it was brilliant to actually do concerts and exhibitions in Uganda, and then bring the musicians to London, and having concerts and exhibitions in London and outside was actually, because it could have, you know, sort of bicultural, you know, collaborations can dilute both cultures to make some sort of, I don't know, floppy, synthetic something. But there was something vital about everybody's contribution made something new. And that was very exciting.
And I think there is something extremely fundamental. I mean, I tend to believe that, you know, just from my own feeling about music, which is terribly important to me, as you know, is that it is probably pre-language, you know, or probably evolved. I mean, the way in which, you know, anything that has a tune or a rhyme lodges itself in a particular bit of one's brain. And I think there's also something for me very, very fundamental about the sort of basic handling of materials and actually making a world of sort of dumb matter meaningful. You know, I mean, I'm not religious, so I don't believe there's overarching kind of, you know, meaning in the sense that you can translate it into, oh, the world is about this or the world means that. But I think the magical thing is, and the extraordinary thing about human beings, is that we are capable of making the world meaningful. And actually that's what art is, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Well, thanks very much.
Okay. Thank you for asking me to, thank you for inviting me.